What is up folks, this is Shady Tech, and today I'm taking a look at the camera comparisons of POCO phone or POCO X3 NFC versus Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. Alright, one disclaimer though, this is definitely not a fair comparison because obviously one of the phone is $1,200 and another one is just like $200. But anyway, I'm doing this test just to show you guys how much a $1,000 different phone can make in terms of the camera quality. So let's get on with it. So for the first photos that I'm taking a look at is the foot, and both of them have an AI mode, and both of them detect this photo as a foot. So as you can see that Note 20 Ultra has much more warmer tone to it compared to POCO, which has much cooler phone. For this particular photos, I would say POCO is a little bit more natural because this is how the foot looks like. The egg definitely is like white compared to like yellowish or warmish colors on the Note 20. Although both of them have a lot of details on it and the sharpness is still there, but somehow I feel that POCO focus point capture a lot more area compared to Note 20 Ultra. Note 20 Ultra looks a bit more like a macro shot in these photos instead of like an actual focus on the whole area. So for this particular image, I would say POCO X3 has a little bit better edge. Alright, now I'm taking a look at the figurine inside my car, which is Elvis himself. Alright, so this is the normal mode. As you can see that POCO is a little bit brighter than Note 20 Ultra here, but of course the background is totally blown out. You barely see the buildings behind it all the way into the distance, whereas Note 20 Ultra still keep a lot of details in its background. So here you can see that the HDR on Note 20 Ultra is far more better than a POCO X3, even though both of them still have quite sharp and detailed photos. Alright, so the next one is the portrait mode on Elvis again. And as you can see that POCO doesn't change the focal length and still keeps same, although the bokeh is still natural on POCO X3. And Note 20 Ultra crop in a little bit more into the focal length. And the image is also sharp and the bokeh is really natural and there's no like weird cut or anything here, so both of them still produce quite a natural bokeh, and the portrait mode works really good here. And moving on to this photo, you can see here the indoor and the outdoor lighting. Here you can see once again POCO X3 in the background is really blown out, like you cannot see anything. Like you can barely see the building far into the distance again. That's just how it is. The HDR mode on POCO is not that great compared to Note 20 Ultra, even though you can see that within the building itself, both of them produce quite similar color tone and quite similar sharpness overall. So I wouldn't say it's much of a big deal with just a blown out background, that's all. And then move on to front facing camera. For the first one is portrait normal mode, and you can see that POCO produce a little bit warmer tone compared to Note 20 Ultra here. As you can see, there's quite a lot of softness and beauty mode on POCO X3 and default mode. Compared to Note 20 Ultra, I feel that Note 20 Ultra produce much better to my true color tone to my skin compared to POCO X3. And Note 20 Ultra have a lot of details and there's not a lot of softness and beauty mode going on here, so definitely I would prefer Note 20 Ultra more compared to the softness that's happening all over POCO X3. Of course you can tone down the beauty mode, but then as a default this is what you get. And the next one is the portrait mode. You can see the portrait mode doesn't change much with the detail here. Both of them produce quite similar results here. And also the bokeh once again is quite natural. There's no weird like lightning or off proportions you can see all over. So yeah, both of them the bokeh is quite good. But of course Note 20 Ultra have better edge here because the front facing camera on Note 20 Ultra does have a wide angle mode. As you can see there's much more shots of myself into the frame, and it's much better if there's like a group of people here. So and of course the detail and the sharpness remain the same as it's still using the same camera, it's just a different focal length, that's all. And of course you cannot get hit here with the POCO X3. Right, move on to low light normal mode. And here the sun is about to set and it's quite a good time for me to test quite a few modes of both of them. For the first one is just a normal mode. You can see that both of them produce quite similar results here. But somehow I do feel that POCO X3 capture a little bit more light, especially on the housing area on the right side there. There's not much detail going on with the Note 20 Ultra on the house. You can see that it's quite dark compared to POCO X3. But then with the sharpness and the detail itself, I would say Note 20 Ultra produce more true to life color compared to POCO X3, which has much more tone again. And then move on to the next shot, which is ×2 zoom. As you know, POCO X3 has digital zoom, whereas Note 20 Ultra has optical zoom. Obviously over here you can see the Note 20 Ultra does much better job with the details and overall sharpness of the quality, just because the optical zoom compared to the digital zoom on POCO X3. POCO X3, you can see that there's quite a lot of noise going on, especially with the darker area and the blackness all over. You can see that there's quite a lot of noise all over there, but it's not too bad though. I would say Note 20 Ultra still produce much more cooler tone and sharpness all over. And then move on with the next one, which is wide angle shot. Wide angle shot does suffer a little bit on POCO X3. I feel that low light wide angle on POCO X3 just generally doesn't produce quite good results here, because you can see that the noise, the sharpness, the detail is much less than Note 20 Ultra. So overall over here on wide angle shots, Note 20 Ultra does a much better jobs. And the next one is the night shot. To be honest, I don't feel there's quite a lot of difference between both of the shots. Feel that they're just almost similar, or if there's any difference at all. I do feel that POCO X3 does have a little bit more details, especially on the muds and clouds area compared to Note 20 Ultra. Probably the scenery is still not that dark enough for Note 20 Ultra to kick in its night mode capability compared to POCO X3. Right, so now with the RAW format, the 64 megapixel versus 108 megapixel on Note 20 Ultra. So as you expect, both of them produce a lot of details and sharpness all over the image. Of course, being 108 megapixel, Note 20 Ultra seems to have a better edge over here. And especially you can tell that the hotel room light far into the distance. The light is quite under control, it's not blown out on Note 20 Ultra compared to POCO X3. But overall, there's not much other difference I would say in this RAW format. So yeah, both of them does a really good jobs on here. The next photo is also the same 64 megapixel versus 108 megapixel. Once again, you can see that Note 20 is brighter on overall image. But on POCO X3, the flow area is a little bit brighter. That's a little bit unusual. Then the rest is much brighter on Note 20 Ultra. Just a flow part, and on the left part of the image, POCO X3 does a little bit brighter. But then, of course, overall the details on Note 20 Ultra is still much more details going on there. Alright, so move on to the next shot with wide angle this time. You can see again, wide angle on POCO phone suffer quite a bit under low light. The whole image is much darker and less detailed compared to Note 20 Ultra. And even the cloud is a little bit blown out too on POCO X3. But here it's pretty obvious that Note 20 Ultra has a better edge on its wide angle camera compared to POCO X3. Well, it is what it is. Alright, so for the last shot, I want to test the HDR off and on mode. I want to see how much difference can be made on both the phones. Interestingly, POCO X3 does have a little bit of difference with its HDR off and on. When it's on, I would say it keeps the lights, the artificial lights or the lamp light and the clouds more details. It's not that blown out, which is with its HDR mode off. But then on a Note 20 Ultra, I barely see any difference with its HDR off and on. Over here, probably the image doesn't make Note 20 Ultra processing feels that it needs to make the difference, so I don't see any difference at all. Everything is just sharp and details. Alright, that's it. There's some picture samples that I did with both this phone. If you want me to take more of this camera capability, you can comment down below, give a like and subscribe if you like. It does help my small little channel to grow. And this is Shady Tech. Until next video, see you soon.